Everyone for joining. We really appreciate your time on this call. So just a little bit of background information, a bit of webcast guidance just to help for a nice, easy call throughout. So as you know, this session will be recorded and shared with you as part of the follow-up. So if you can, please ensure that your mics are muted throughout to prevent any background noise. That will be greatly appreciated. Hopefully throughout the call, we answer all of your burning questions regarding the cloud. But if not, and you do feel you have any burning questions throughout, please feel free to pop them into the IM window or save them till the end when we do have a Q&A. If you have any further questions after the call or even during and you just want to jot it down quickly, please feel free to send over an email to marketing@risual.com and we can be with you with a day's notice. So we'll be very happy to help you in any way that you need. So just run through the agenda really quickly. I know you have all seen this in your invitation anyway. So we will be joined by our lovely partner, Automated Intelligence, who will be supporting us with executing this webcast. Some of the topics we do intend on covering are threats of not being in the cloud, managing data and security during migration, all the benefits you will receive when moving to the cloud and all the doors that it unlocks. And then, of course, what's next with Azure. And as I've just mentioned, we will have time for a Q&A at the end where you can get all of your questions answered by specialists. So, Michelle, if you just want to take over as presenter and hand over to you. Michelle, I think you might be on mute. Can you hear?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great, thank you, Molly. So hi everybody, Michelle Hurd here. I'm one of the account managers at Risual. I've joined Risual this year. I look after the public and the private sector, looking after around sort of 50 accounts. And I'll just pass you on to Jay.
Morning, folks. I'm Jay Fitzhenry. I'm a business solutions consultant that sits in our consultancy division, and I'll be talking you guys through quite a bit of the presentation, specifically around some of the threats that you'll find while staying on premises, and looking at the benefits that you will receive once you move to the cloud. And over to Eamon.
Hi everyone. I'm Eamon O'Connor, partner solutions specialist at Automated Intelligence. And we are a leading data management solutions company. We're headquartered in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and we're a Microsoft Gold partner. My role is I really look after our partner and channel relationships, and I've been very fortunate to have been working very closely with Risual over the past 12 months as we develop and forge our strategic partnership. And I'm very much looking forward to working with Jay on delivering this webcast today.
Okay, so this takes me on to who are Risual. So just going to give you a bit of a background for those of you that aren't familiar with us. So we are UK based, we're globally recognised. So we're an IT services organisation. Our head offices are in Stafford, but we do have coverage across the whole of the UK, and we do also do some work overseas. This year we revamped our portfolio to focus on 3 key areas. So here you can see cloud, business and digital. So these are the 3 key transformation areas that we are focusing on as a business. So just to talk you through our values, as a business, we are passionate about transforming organisations. We hold the values of honesty, openness and trust. And we do truly take pride in delivering innovative Microsoft technology to our clients. We are also a Microsoft Gold partner. So what do? We're an expert in transformation. We offer an agile and unique service to our clients. And we do offer consultancy services, skills and solutions to help organisations. So this brings me on to our next slide, where I'm going to sort of briefly cover some of the areas that we focus on as a business. So here is a basic overview of our business. Again, you can see the 3 pillars of our business. We have recently been awarded Azure Expert MSP. So this puts Risual in the top 0.02% of partners globally for cloud transformation. So this is something that we are very proud of as an organisation. Our cloud transformation portfolio helps our clients accelerate their journey to the cloud. whether it's a hybrid model that you're looking at, public or private cloud. We can help you along your Azure or your AWS adoption roadmap. We can also help move you to Windows 10. So we do have some funding available around this at the minute. We're currently running quite a few assessments for some of our clients. So this is available, and if it's something you're interested in, please do drop us a message after the webcast. We also cover modern workplace. So this approach engages across your business, delivering the ability to inspire and retain staff through modern productivity services. So I'm just going to talk through our business transformation portfolio now. So this combines modern technology with strong people change management approaches, and basically helps you re-engineer how businesses operate. Our approach drives value across the organisation through consolidation of existing legacy technology services such as Dynamics 365. We can help you with business intelligence capabilities through Power BI. Jay, who we've got on the call, is one of the specialists in this area, and we can help improve internal processes. One of our partners, DocuSign, they provide licenses which can save organisations precious time. And then briefly touching on our digital transformation side of the business. So this approach identifies clear intent and outcomes with a focus on increasing value and the service that you can provide to your customers. Some of our offerings are custom app development, data and analytics services, machine learning, and much more, as you can see from this slide. So no matter where you are in your IT strategy, we can almost assist at any stage, whether it be the assessment and strategy stage, planning and implementation, or even the optimization and support stage. And we do offer dedicated specialist technical teams. We are very flexible as a business, agile, and we offer scalable delivery. All of our staff are security cleared. And we also have a managed services arm to the business who are available 24/7, 365. To Jay now, so if you'd like to take.
Excellent. Yeah. So let's jump straight in. So one of the things we like to speak about to clients about when moving to the cloud is looking at what's currently happening with their on-premise estate, and then ultimately what they're going to get once they move into the cloud. What I like to focus on is looking at the threats first. So some of the threats that you may find if you do remain on premises are essentially what you can see on the screen here. So if we look at flexibility, when you're on premises, it can be quite difficult to scale quite quickly. Let's say you've got a project and you need to provision a series of new machines. You usually have to bring in that hardware, configure it up using specialists that you bring in from third parties, and ultimately it takes more time. It adds more time to the project as you need to take in these different considerations. Okay. Adding on to that, we then have the aging infrastructure. So once you've bought that hardware, you've configured it, you've set it up to do whatever you want it to do. 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, that infrastructure could be out of date, and by out of date I mean may not have the latest security features that new hardware does. Sometimes you may find that updates for those machines are irrelevant. They're no longer being supported. So in the case of Microsoft and Windows Server 2012, extended support for that ends in 2023, if I remember correctly. So if you're not off by 2023, that infrastructure is going to be out of date. Okay. In addition to this, you may find that if you're looking for support contracts to actually cover that aging infrastructure, you may find it difficult as they will no longer have the support of large organizations such as Microsoft. Adding on to that further, we then have a look at disaster recovery. So again, in your on-premise environment, when you start configuring these physical machines, one of the things you want to look for is how can you architect a solution that in the event of a disaster, you can continue business as normal. What that means is that you usually bring in additional specialists who are experts in those areas. Doing so incurs, again, an additional cost, and that cost can be extended if you're looking at having specific geolocated sites. So if you wanted to have a site, let's say in our case based in Stafford, and you wanted to make sure you were geo-redundant, you may then want to have another site in potentially London or Manchester or wherever else. Having multiple data centers obviously then incurs that additional cost, which may be something that you can mitigate when you move to the cloud. Okay. In sort of recent history, we've had those sort of potentially terror attacks in London. Let's say things got worse and there were increased terror attacks, tsunamis, earthquakes. If you only had one geolocated site, again, you could actually be subject to those issues. So again, this is something that you really need to think about when you're provisioning any form of architecture, any form of solution. In addition to this, we can look at physical security and then how security can link into disaster recovery, where yes, you may have multiple data centers all over the place, but actually there are still physical sites that people could access. And usually these physical sites are located within offices. Now, benefit being in an office, easy to access, people can make changes as and when needed. However, because they are still physically located in potentially the same building as potentially bad actors, they could have physical access to those data centers as well. In addition to that, and security, we can then look at your security teams. So I'll talk about security teams a little bit later on in terms of your benefits, but ultimately these guys are going to secure that on-premise infrastructure. Now, the threat of keeping it on-premises is those security teams are potentially limited in the knowledge that they have or the information they have at their fingertips. So therefore, the decision they're making may not be as informed as what you may get when you move to the cloud. Moving away from the infrastructure side of things, we can start looking at collaboration. So if, let's say, you were wanting to move from your on-premise environment into Azure, it's not just your servers, it's not just your data or any of that you're looking at. It's also potentially looking at the tools available to you in the cloud. Now, currently, you may find that when you're on premises, users may be unable to collaborate on documentation, maybe because they're accessed in local drives, they're accessed on people's physical machines, and maybe to share, you need to email them over as attachments. Now, this can take more time for people to review documents. It can take more time for you to create a solution or a product and take it to market. You may limit the number of potential work locations where people ultimately can work. As a result, you may need to have people working in the office, and again, this can cause additional costs around hosting people in the office, providing maybe devices, hardware, physical locations to actually enable them to carry out their job, and then ultimately control as well. So if you've got people on premises, what you can sometimes find is you end up with shadow IT, where people are provisioning their own services that sit under the radar of the wider IT team. Going on a little bit further into competition, here, we've moved away from the infrastructure side, we've moved away from the collaboration side, and we're now looking at competition. So one of the other threats is around, if you were attacked on premises, that could potentially cause irreparable damage to your organization and your reputation. I don't think that's anything that anyone really wants. But additionally as well, if you did have downtime, so in recent history, one of our clients had an on-premise environment. There were some local issues in the area which caused their business to shut down for a couple of days. Then no emails out, which is one of the core elements, their core lead generator for the business. So they essentially were cut off from the wider world and couldn't generate additional business. As a result, they couldn't create content, and that directly impacted their sales for the month. If you were in the cloud, there's some additional benefits that can help you with that. But again, we'll talk about those later on. Over to Eamon.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. So for my session, I'm going to be talking about managing data and security during migration. And I've got three key topics that I wanted to cover off. The first one being identifying high-value data. So very much from the inception of automated intelligence as a company in 2010, we have undertaken over 100 transformational projects across both the private and public sector, really for a range of different information requirements. However, in almost all these scenarios, when we first engage with our customers, we're hearing the same message. We do not understand our data. We do not know what or how much we have, or really what the makeup of that data is. And this is often a blocker for organizations, particularly ones who are looking to undertake an intelligent, high quality data migration. And it can often prevent progress from being made. So very much in our experience, an instrumental really to success of any intelligent migration is a need to undertake a thorough assessment and an analysis of your data. And typically what we find is that 80% of business data is actually unstructured, or what we otherwise deem as dark data. So therefore, deriving powerful insights into this data is really important. Understanding how much of it can be categorized as redundant, obsolete, or trivial data, as ROT as we call it, which is in effect zero value data, no real value to organization. Therefore, posing questions such as why are we even holding on to this data, let alone considering migrating it to your shiny new cloud platform, which again potentially will be clogging it up with zero value data. However, at the other end of the spectrum, when looking at data, there will be relevant current business information created very recently by a current user force, and this should be prioritized for migration in the first instance. And finally, we talked about dark data. This is largely unknown, but data that could potentially be quite valuable to an organization in terms of the historical benefit relating to things like business transactions, contractual elements, or even intellectual property. However, to achieve this level of insight often requires a more advanced, deeper analytics approach, such as using keyword and phrase searching, pattern recognition, and even delving into the realms of related entity analysis as well. However, using analytics and insights derived from this analysis enables you to logically group data together, start to classify it according to function, activity, or transaction, or even against an organization retention schedule. ROT data, which we've talked about, can effectively be cleansed and removed via a fully audited defensible process, again prior to migration. So the next topic, I'm going to talk about enabling data governance and control. And really the challenge we're seeing when working with customers, particularly ones who are defining their migration journeys, is we quickly discover that they've lost control of their data. Any structure, compliance, or governance that was originally put in place has now become out of date, or it wasn't actually actively applied in the first place. So as data grows organically, it's all become a little bit of a free-for-all, or the Wild West as we sometimes refer to it. Controls such as applying meaningful metadata to classify data or implementing a robust security model are key aspects of data governance that should be considered during, after, and before any migration. So establishing the ownership and the relevance of data is key and can be supported through the use of compliance reporting to engage business stakeholders over their data, as well as using reporting to identify ungoverned data or data that hasn't been classified and has no action or retention policies associated. So what we're seeing a lot of once data is brought under control as being governed, it is much easier to optimize it for a high quality, full fidelity migration, obviously taking into account the integrity of data by preserving metadata and where necessary, custom security permissions as well, ensuring that the data is appropriately mapped to the locations that have been designed and developed in the new target information architecture. So my third and final topic here as part of managing data during migration is really about understanding and mitigating risk. The General Data Protection Regulation came very much into force last year, and under this regulation, organizations are required to adequately protect the privacy of their employees and customers, and obviously any related personal information they might be storing or processing on them. However, one of the challenges that we're seeing when we engage customers is that because they're not really understanding their data, it's actually really difficult to know whether they're actually holding or processing personal information. But the risk is very real. PII, or personally identifiable information, is held in unstructured data. We're seeing it all the time. We're presenting the results back to our customers time and time again. So from here, do businesses have the appropriate purpose or consent for this? Yes, it's obviously evident they're holding it. It's often data from quite a while ago. It's just been forgotten about. But are they actually securing and protecting this information and potentially other intellectual property from, say, unauthorized access or unauthorized sharing? So in terms of the solutions, and one of the solutions we deploy internally at AI is the ability to do things like pattern detection. It's a very effective technique used to identify PII, and again, performing this sort of analysis in the cloud enables you to take advantage of almost unlimited cloud compute, allow you to scale across large data sets. And obviously, we're typically doing this on premises, on costly infrastructure, and this was often slow and could be cumbersome to achieve. So once PII and IP, intellectual property, is discovered, it should really be appropriately classified, labeled, and policy applied. So policy can be anything really from disposing of data, archiving data, to different options within Azure storage, such as blob or Azure files for maybe longer term cost-effective preservation, or even once it's classified, migrating it to Office 365, say to SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business, again where it can be secured using some of the advanced data governance capabilities in the Security and Compliance Center. I just wanted to finish off with a bit of an example, particularly around mitigating of risk. In a recent engagement we were working on with a client, we were doing some data discovery work with them. The client discovered what seemed like a fairly inconspicuous document. However, the search results that were rendered using our solution suggested otherwise. In fact, looking more closely at this, embedded in the document, lurking right pretty much down to the bottom of it, was an embedded spreadsheet. And by opening up, it revealed that we were containing a number of names, addresses, telephone numbers, bank details, travel-related documents, almost over 200 members of staff and various customers. So this is a bit of a shocking revelation. Let's just say there was a flurry of activity heading towards the server room and some very quick fire deleting going on after this. Jay, do you want to take control?
Excellent. Okay, good stuff. So in this area, the webcast, I'm going to be speaking about some of the benefits of moving to the cloud. So we've kind of gone through some of the threats. We've talked about data. Now it's sort of going quite high level again, and looking at, well, once you move to the cloud, what you're actually going to get. So you'll probably see that these link quite closely to the threats, and what I've tried to do here is break it up so we can fix your immediate issues that you have while being on premises, and then I'll talk about later on about some of the additional benefits that you get with the cloud. So if we first look at flexibility, so in the previous example, we were talking about how when you set up a new project and you want to provision more infrastructure or build a new existing infrastructure, it usually involves purchasing new hardware that could eventually become out of date and may no longer be supported by the provider. Moving to the cloud allows you to be a little bit more flexible in that sense, because you don't necessarily need to buy that physical hardware, as it's all hosted in our case, Microsoft data centers. So if you wanted to provision a new database, go ahead and do that. That's fine. If you want to add more storage to a VM, yeah, go ahead and do that. That's perfectly fine. And that hasn't involved you having to go out, find someone who can provide you with maybe new drives, who can provide you with the physical components to actually build a machine to then host a database. It's all done in the cloud. It's all done as a service. To build on this further, we can look at capacity. So in this instance, again, If you want to build up on the amount of storage space available, you don't need to go out and find a new drive. You can just expand it using a nice slider in Azure. And then this isn't just the case for maybe 1 or 2 services. This is the case for all services that manage data. In addition to this, you'll find that the actual cost of hosting the information that's stored in the cloud is substantially cheaper. So much so that some services offer storing gigabytes at 0.0002 pence. Quite insignificant, and ultimately isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg. Rather than spending however much for 2 terabyte, 10 terabyte drives, you're paying for what you need when you need it. In addition to this, because you're not having to worry about provisioning additional infrastructure, you're not having to bring in those specialists necessarily to create these solutions, you're saving on time. So not only are you getting machines up and running quickly without additional cost, but you're doing it in a much more timely fashion. In addition to this, looking at the infrastructure side of things, because you're now using the latest and greatest, you're reducing the number of potential risks. Okay. This is achieved as your physical hardware, because it's governed by Microsoft. It's always going to be the latest hardware, that it's always going to be supported, and you're going to get updates pushed or automatically, or you can configure them to be automatically. Following on from that, it also becomes a lot more supportable. So, we've been with some clients where they're still running sort of, 2003. You can't really support that because if something goes wrong, we can't then rely on whoever else to provide the additional support. If there's bugs, which are maybe due to Microsoft, if it's out of support, that's it. Whereas if you're looking at some of the latest server releases, we can very much help you with that with our series of subject matter experts. And in the event that we can't, we've got Microsoft who can come in and assist us. Once you're looking at your infrastructure and you have your machines provisioned, we want to make sure that we can recover everything in the event of a disaster recovery. So before we mentioned geo redundancy, and that if you wanted to ensure that you were, you had a almost 100% uptime, you may want to have a look at using data centers in multiple geographic regions. The example I gave was maybe one in Stafford or one in London or Manchester. In Azure, you have functionality in place where you can set this up by default. So you could have a database that's hosted in a UK data center and have another one hosted in European data centers. If you want to be a little bit more cautious, maybe look at GDPR and then how that's governed, you may want to have a look at using just the data centers in the UK, and you can do that. Essentially, the way these work is Microsoft gives you an option of regions, and those regions include a flurry of data centers. The additional benefit of using these is you're reducing the amount of access that users physically have to those machines, because a lot of this is infrastructure as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later on. It means that bad actors can't physically access those machines. People can't accidentally walk into a server room, or in the case of one of our clients, they can't walk through the front door and see the servers. Okay. Adding on to this further, a lot of services have backups enabled by default, and if not, they can be configured easily. Rather than in an on-premise environment, you may be looking at just backups on those machines. You may have a look at something like DPM. You don't need to worry about this. You can configure this all through Azure. Going into security a little bit more, I've spoken about physical, but we actually look at the security teams. What you'll find is once you move to the cloud, not just Azure, but also looking at 365, you get a whole range of security tools. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail later on, but ultimately this provides you more data points that security teams can digest and ultimately make recommendations based on that information. If we start looking at 365 and looking at the more collaboration space in the cloud, users can easily collaborate on documents. So rather than having these blockers that we've had previously where you're going to have to email documents, they're stored on local drives, they're stored on people's local machines, you can use services such as SharePoint Online and integrate that with Microsoft Teams. You end up with a single place where all your workers can collaborate, and it doesn't matter where they are because it's all in the cloud. They can work from home, they can work from the office, they can work on the train. In our case, we have consultants all over the country. They need to be able to access documents, whenever, 24/7, and using SharePoint Online, Teams, and the other variety of tools that we have, they can do that. Because we're starting to use a unified approach when managing these documents, when managing this infrastructure, we can have a governance model that encompasses everything. So when it comes to governing documents, we can add tags onto them. We can control which documents are entering the business, which ones are leaving the business. We know who's accessing what, when they're accessing it. And if any issues arise, we can target that with almost pinpoint accuracy, rather than having to worry about several bad actors accessing things through an on-premise network. It's all going through online, and the security tools in place allows you to build on policies, allows you to identify where those threats are. And then finally, looking at competition, essentially making sure that we have that transparency between your teams, making sure people can access those documents, making sure your infrastructure can be governed easily by your IT team. It reduces the amount of time required to fix issues, and ultimately, if you have any downtime in your business, it will be severely, quite exponentially reduced. In the example I gave before, people are off for a couple of days. Here, you may be off for a couple of minutes, depending on your configuration. Adding on to this further, because of the additional benefits you get with the cloud, you may find that what you've traditionally worked with is no longer relevant, and there are other services that can assist you with becoming more competitive. Now, we've covered off those initial benefits and how they can fix those on-premise issues. Let's have a look at some of these additional components. So, looking at scalability, we've kind of already touched on this, but I'm going to go into it a little bit more detail. So we've talked about building out machines quickly. We've talked about not needing specialists in every subject area, and that's one side of the argument, or one side of the topic. The other side is, once you have that infrastructure provisioned, how do you make sure you make the use of it? How do you make sure that you're not being overcharged? How do you quickly spin up and spin down? How do you scale out? Now, this is where the cloud really comes into an element of its own. So let's say you had a machine and you need to add more space. Again, we can just add a new space. That's fine. If we're looking at databases or other services that use compute, so by that I mean you may have a database that has maybe 1 gig of RAM assigned to it, and you may want to quickly rack that up. If you always went with the top level, you could be spending thousands of pounds a month. Okay, that's not something that you really want. But with this scalability that's built in, that's baked into these products, we can scale up to be the best of the best for maybe 20 seconds. So that job would execute in 20 seconds, it would reduce cost, and it's as if you're running the top spec machines. Again, this then reduces the time to complete different actions, and ultimately you'll get an insight a hell of a lot faster. Adding on to this more, we have the additional products that then come with this. So, what I've shown on the slide here, you can see IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, and DBaaS. I appreciate these are probably code words for everyone, so I'll go into them in a little bit more detail. So, IaaS, or infrastructure as a service, this is where you're looking at your physical servers that you have on premises. In Azure, you can fire these up quickly, and going back to scalability, we can provision more very easily. We can also then spin the storage components up and the actual specification of those servers easily. This is really your instant computing infrastructure. So this is where everything's hosted. What you may find, though, is your current on-premise environment that you may have developed. If you move it up into the cloud, it could be maybe potentially more expensive. It could have functionality you didn't initially, or you weren't initially aware of. So you may want to extend that service further, or you may find that it's already available as a platform as a service, and that's where PaaS comes into it. So these are things, and you may have heard of them, around the Common Data Service, Dynamics 365. Now, these are development and deployment environments. This is where you have a foundation in place, and you're going to build on that foundation. So this is where you may build custom applications or other elements to help make your business potentially more profitable, to aid collaboration, or to capture information that traditionally was quite difficult. I'm sure there's some people on the call which are currently using SharePoint on premises, and they're probably using things like Infopath. that's in the days of old. We're moving over to this common data service model now on how we can turn those into applications that the business can use day in, day out without issue. We then move on to software as a service. So now these are talking about your business applications. Okay, so this is looking at the Office Suite, Power BI, and 365 other 365 applications such as Microsoft Teams. This is where we start helping users collaborate more. This is where we start giving those users the tools to work remotely, ensuring they can make changes to documents easily. And traditionally something that you'd have to get your IT team on premises to share out with everyone and to actively keep up to date. You don't need to do this here, they're always up to date. And then finally that I've got on here is DBaaS or DBaaS. This is your database as a service. So it may not apply to you all, but if you currently have databases stored on premises, you don't necessarily need to have the server that hosts them. You can host them on their own through this service offering. So maybe something to look into a little bit further. Benefit of this is you have a more flexibility around scalability, and you don't have the additional cost of hosting a server underneath it. What you probably found, there's a trend here. We're trying to do everything without additional servers, without incurring that additional cost, and that's the key focus of the cloud. Let's minimize cost and make sure people can use more. Now, if you've got users using a lot of these services, you may be really cautious about security and how do you make sure that they're not doing nefarious things. This is where we have the compliance and security centers in both of these tools. So you can give your IT teams enough information to make informed decisions on how they're going to tackle potentially threats in the business. How can they identify possible leaks, those components. Adding on to this, and you may already have it, is advanced threat protection. So this is a relatively newish product by Microsoft, and they're really pushing it this year. Essentially, this uses something called the Microsoft Security Graph. Now, what does that mean? Essentially, it's a series of data points that are generated across their estate to help you get information on threats before they occur. Now, this is done through scanning 400 billion emails annually. Quite a few data points there, and they're spending $1 billion into this tool every year. Benefit of all these different components is you get 99% capture rate. Now, on premises, you don't have millions of data points. It's unlikely that you have £1 billion lying around that you can invest in your own security. Microsoft are handling that for you, and with this 99% capture rate, they are making sure that those issues aren't getting into your environment. You aren't exposed to those threats. And if anything, that is something that you should really take away from this session, that in this more cyber and this more connected world, these threats are only ever going to increase. So let's identify those threats and fix them before they materialize. And finally, automation. So once we maybe have identified a threat, or we've identified elements in our data, we may want to have automated processes off the back of it. Now, traditionally, you maybe have to get a custom developer to come in and create something that you may not be able to support. Once you move to the cloud, you've got more services that are exposed to you. So you can use things like Azure Logic Apps, which are used for creating workflows, flows, which are really designed for your end users, and you can also use those for system integrations. Okay. Now, these integrations require little to no knowledge on how they actually work, and they're very much a drag and drop approach. Adding on to this and looking at the enhanced security, you can also have automated jobs once an alert comes in. As an example, if you have a machine that has detected a malicious file, you can disconnect it from the network instantly. You can lock down that file to certain areas. And these are all automation elements in the cloud that traditionally you don't have on premises. Okay. Now, I'll pass you back over to Eamon. Eamon, I think you might be on mute.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you. So yeah, Jay has talked about the rich array of capabilities that the Microsoft platform has to offer. I'm really going to focus on the benefits of moving your business data to the Microsoft cloud, starting with Microsoft Office 365. So many of the organizations we work with have invested heavily in Microsoft Office 365 licenses, but are very much on different parts of their journey when transitioning to this platform. However, for an Office 365 rollout project to be successful, it really requires data. And not any old data, but clean, relevant, current data. And many of the apps, such as Delve, OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online, Teams, etc., they're using underlying automated algorithms to reason over this data in the platform to provide a much more personalized, targeted, richer user experience for people. However, without data in the platform, this intelligence simply cannot be harnessed. Often what we see as well when we are approached by organizations is that they're just not rolling out capabilities such as SharePoint Online. This is obviously counterintuitive. It means you're not getting return on investment. With almost all the Office 365 plans now, you get a considerable amount of SharePoint storage. So why not use it? Start reaping the rewards of improved business functionality. We've talked a lot about data governance and really how that springs to life with the Microsoft platform. Undertaking an intelligent migration to the cloud, there is a wealth of data governance capabilities available. And again, Jay's talked about some of these, allowing you to apply automated retention and disposal policies, ensuring you're only keeping information you need, and managing your business critical records throughout their lifecycle. Data loss prevention and rights management are really powerful, ensuring your data is safe regardless of its location, applying a policy that lives with a document at all times, alerting you whenever there is an inappropriate action on that particular document. So just outlining the business benefits again, as we've discussed today, there's just a huge amount out there and really a real opportunity to move your business data to the cloud, improve productivity, time-saving collaboration for your workforce, effective use for future decision-making as well. So looking at predictions on how your company can be forecasted, as well as efficient working and just providing that fantastic user experience with all these possible and powerful tools at your disposal. Jay, if you want to take over.
Excellent, thanks for that, Eamon. So one thing I wanted to talk about as well was, okay, yeah, you're on premises currently, you're looking to the cloud, great. So you now know what those threats are, you now know what the benefits are. You may want to understand, well, what's next in Azure? If we move over today, what are we going to get and what's going to come further down the line? So I provided this link on there. This is a link to essentially the Azure roadmap. So you can see every component that's been updated and these new releases that are coming further down the line. These include things like changes to how databases are hosted in Azure. There are some changes to storage accounts. In addition to this, there's constant changes going on with the Office 365 stack. Looking at Power BI as an example, there are new updates coming on that every month. Around the Power Platform, you have updates twice a year. So that it's constantly being updated. If you move to the cloud, it's not stationary. You're going to have to go through this process and essentially have that iterative approach. You're constantly updating, you're constantly becoming modern, you're constantly remaining relevant, and going back to that competitiveness. If you may not be doing this now, but your competitors might be, or other people may be. Now, moving to the cloud can set you aside and allow you to build on that functionality further. Now we've kind of gone through these elements. Ultimately, how can Visual help you? So we've broken this up into 3 areas. We've got assessment and strategy, plan and implement, optimize and support. Now these are areas which ultimately you guys will have to target at some point, and we can help you at any stage. In terms of assessment and strategy, this is where we spend some time with your organization. We work with you directly, with the team. We understand what those business issues are, what the business case is, and ultimately help you build out that strategy. Okay. Now, these are usually in the form of workshops and could be from anyone, from maybe a consultant through to an architect, through to anyone who's relevant and is an expert in that subject area that you want to help with. We typically do these before any engagement to ensure that everyone's on the same page. There's a clear structure to how everything comes together, And if we're going to do any design and planning, we want to make sure we've got as much information so those plans are implemented as per your requirements. The plan implement stage is where we start creating some design documentation. We bring in project management so they can help structure everything. And again, you have those subject matter experts. The design documentation is designed to give you both a high level and low level view of what this solution is going to be. And ultimately, you could take that away and deploy the solution yourself. The documentation is sort of one of our quite strong points. That they're quite beefy documents, and they've got a whole load of information in there. Typically, you have a roughly like an introduction, a discussion of what the products are, what that solution architecture may be, and any useful links. Off the back of that stage, we also create a essentially schedule of work, which will then give you an estimate on how much that would be if Visual were to implement it. It'll also give you a breakdown of tasks that you could then take yourself and implement on your own. Once that's been implemented, you want to build on that service. You want to make sure it's supportable, and that's another area we can help you. So we can provide ongoing support. So with the solution that you've implemented, we can support you with that. If you want us to manage updates, if you want us to manage changes, or just be someone to call upon, we have these subject matter experts that can help you in those areas. One of the main areas is also building on that current service. So one thing that I sort of mentioned earlier on is that it's not just a linear path. Yeah, you're not going to go through this process once. This is something that iterates. It's something that repeats. It's something that is ongoing. So once you've moved everything to the cloud, your next step isn't to say, yeah, we're fine, let's leave it at that. Your next step should be, well, how do we get more out of this investment? How do we use some of the other products that are available to us? How do we start migrating our services into something that's already Microsoft hosted? How can we build elements of automation and ultimately give more to our clients, customers, residents, whoever else? Traditionally, again, this is not something that you can really do in an on-premise environment unless you have, bucket loads of cash lying around, unless you have those subject matter experts available to you 24/7. Moving to the cloud, it gives you the ability to be self-sufficient. It gives you the ability to not then rely on specialists having to come in. It can reduce cost. So these are all areas that we try and help you. Again, you can probably go away and do this yourself, but we're here to support you through that journey, and it's a journey that's going to be ongoing. And at this point in time, we've kind of only covered a small portion of the cloud, and if you are really interested in how you can get more out of this, we can certainly have calls and chats with you following this webinar. So this is probably ample time for me to pass you back on to Michelle.
Thank you, Jay. So we're just going to move on to questions now. So please feel free to unmute your microphones. If you do have a question, if you could put it in the chat. So there's a message option on here where you can drop a question, and I'm more than happy to ask the experts. If you do think of any questions after the webcast, you can also see our email address, which is marketing@visual.com. So if there is anything that you think of a little later on, please don't hesitate to drop that message over to our inbox. So I think we've got a question through. So what do you mean by intelligent migration?
I'm Michelle. I could probably take this one on. So when we talk about intelligent migration, we're really talking about enabling organizations to really take control of their data so they can take control of their future. And migration is typically moving from something which may be legacy or something which is going out of support, or you want to move away from one place to another, which is really your future. So it's really allowing you to take control of your future there. And often what we look at with intelligent migration as well is look at the quality of the data that you're migrating. It's not necessarily about bringing all of that information over, because often what you're doing is simply moving the problem that you had originally in the old world to the new. And why would you really want to clutter up your brand new environment that you've just invested in. So it's often about taking stock, looking at your information, sifting through it, being able to identify what is value, and what do you really want to take, what is going to make for a great user experience in your new platform. That there may be older data and as I mentioned before, darker data that you don't necessarily, or you can't get rid of, So again, there's opportunities there to maybe direct that data elsewhere, again, in more cost-effective platforms that are available. So it's really about, looking at your data, not just in terms of just moving it and getting it there. It's about that kind of journey, and that's really where you can get return on investment and value from your investments.
Okay. Thanks, Eamon. Another question that's just come in. How easy is it to start? I think this one's probably going to be one for you, Jay.
Yeah, definitely. So it depends what you're looking for. So if you're moving into Azure and you're wanting to use that cloud service, it's as easy as getting a subscription. So they're just creating an account, setting up a subscription, and you can start creating resources. Easy as that. There's no real prerequisites. You can just go ahead. Obviously, you're going to want to spend some time planning everything out. But again, there's no cost to you if you were to do that. The other side of things is if you're looking at 365, again, it's as easy as just buying a license. Essentially, all those products are purchased through licenses, and there's a couple of different options available to you. One thing we find that some of our clients find that the Microsoft licensing isn't always the most straightforward. And we can help you with that as well. So we can spend some time, we can help you build frameworks on how you can deploy products in your organization, how you can license them in the cheapest or most affordable manner, and how you can manage that going forwards. You can start today. You can leave this call and in 5 minutes you can set up Azure and potentially Office 365. So it's as easy as that. Again, maybe another benefit of the cloud is you don't need to wait around to have that hardware delivered. It is just at your fingertips and ready to go.
Okay, thanks, Jay. I think we've got one more question. So where can I migrate my data to in Azure?
So Jay, I'm happy to pick this one up with it being a data related question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Excellent. So yeah, I mean, again, both Jay and I have kind of talked about some of the different platform offerings and capabilities, but in terms of Azure, you have got a rich offering there in terms of managing data. You can start with maybe the most cost-effective model that's available. That's obviously your blob storage, and again that is offered in different tiers. So warm right down to cool storage, and again that's and how that's priced is dependent on how frequently you're accessing that data and the different levels of redundancy and backup and all those things you want wrapped up in the service. But for file and object-based storage, it's some of the best storage capability out there. If you want something with a little bit more control and a little bit more like you potentially would have in an on-premise network drive and file share, then Azure Files again is a really good option. And obviously now you've got quite a lot of advanced capability there in terms of being able to repurpose your access control lists, SMB based ones over to that environment as well. So it can almost be a like for like migration should you want to replicate that over there. And that could be potentially a staged approach. As you transition to the cloud, you're not quite ready to start to move all that data into Office 365. Azure Files can offer that. As well as that, you've obviously got things like Azure Data Lake and for the kind of more powerful business intelligence based offerings as well, and Azure and Microsoft are continually rolling out new capabilities, and a lot of new stuff was released and talked about at the recent Ignite event as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So this leads us on to our final slide. What's next? So please don't forget to stay connected with us on social media. So if you could follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, and likewise for Automated Intelligence, please do follow their LinkedIn page. Again, there's our marketing email address. If you do wish for any further information after this webcast, please do feel free to drop us an email, or if you'd also like to book maybe a one-to-one call or a meeting, again, please send those requests through to that email address. You will also receive a follow-up email shortly to just basically summarise the webcast. So thanks again for joining. We really do hope you found it useful, and please do stay connected, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.